sorry. 好。
我中間上面啊，好啊。
好，唔該晒，唔該晒。
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, friends of the media, to the press conference on the budget 2024 to 25. Attending the press conference, we have the following officials: Financial Secretary, Mr. Paul Chen; Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Mr. Christopher Hui; Permanent Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, Ms. Cassie Chu; and Government Economist, Mr. Adolf Leung. Now, the Financial Secretary will deliver some opening remarks. Friends of the media and fellow citizens, good afternoon. This morning at the Legislative Council, I delivered the second budget of this term of the government. I would like to highlight some points for you now. As you know, in 2023, the economic growth for Hong Kong was 3.2%. There are three main driving engines for our economic growth, that is export, private consumption, and investment expenditure. For export, well, the geopolitical circumstances remain tense, and also interest rates remained at a high level externally. So there is indeed weakened demand for consumption goods outside Hong Kong. So exports fell by about 10% last year. As for export of services, that's doing really well because after full resumption of normal travel, there were many more visitors coming to Hong Kong. About 34 million visitors came. So with export of travel services, there's an increase of about 21%. And for the second main driving engine of economic growth, now because with more visitors coming here, our economy continued to improve, and so there's relatively good increase in private consumption, some 7%, and then investment expenditure also grew as a result by about 10%. As for the unemployment rate, last year it was 2.9%. So that means the labor market was doing fairly fine. As for inflation rate, it was 1.7%. In the asset market, well, there was some sustained consolidation of the stock market last year. In the first quarter, after the resumption of normal travel, there were good economic activities. The stock market did quite well, and then starting from the second quarter, the stock market became weak. As for the property market, there was a drop in prices of about 7%. Transaction volumes remained at a low level, about 43,000 transactions for the full year. So that's a drop of 5% compared to the year before. So we could see, therefore, in terms of the investment sentiments and confidence, they've been impacted upon. And then for 2024, the external environment remained complicated and uncertain. There's still geopolitical tension. As for interest rates in the US, well, it's anticipated the rates will come down, but the timing and magnitude of the rate cut remain uncertain. some expressed concern that maybe interest rate will only be cut in the second half of the year or even later. So that's why there is relatively weak confidence in the market. Also, we can see visitors' preferences and spending patterns have also changed. Even for our own citizens, we've also seen some changes in the way people spend. So that's why in this budget, we need to keep confidence steady in the near term. We need to respond to external factors that lead to a weak market. And then in the medium term, we need to start preparing ourselves for the challenges. Now, for the property market, in terms of bolstering confidence this morning, I've removed all the property cooling measures. As for mortgage policies, there's also been some relaxation. This is to lead the market so that the pessimistic sentiment would not be blown up disproportionately. Now, in the medium term, we are still going to compete for talents, capital, and enterprises. Now, we've been seeing some good progress on these fronts in recent months. Perhaps I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, I and my colleagues will be happy to answer them. Okay, now the floor is open to questions. Now, after I invite you to speak, please first identify the media organization you represent, and please limit yourself to no more than 3 questions. First, to my left on the first row. Over there, please. I'm from TVB. Good afternoon. Will the government proceed with the Khao Yai Chau Artificial Islands project? When would you make a decision? Because in the budget it said that in 2026-27 there will be fiscal surplus. So will you only proceed with the Khao Yai Chau project then? And if you're not going to proceed with the project now, you're still spending on doing studies, would it be a waste of money? Now, for the Khao Yai Chau Artificial Islands project, as you know, we are trying to create land. We need to make sure we have sufficient land supply. At the same time, we want to build up a land bank. In the past 2 decades or so, you've seen that because there's not sufficient land and housing supply, and property prices soared at one stage to a very high level. So we want to avoid that from happening again. So what is important is that we create land. And there are 2 major projects as a land source, that is the Northern Metropolis and the Khao Yai Chau Artificial Islands projects. Both are important projects for the supply of land. As for the sequence of the projects, well, with the Northern Metropolis, that's already ongoing. To the east, there's Kutong, Fanning North, New Town Extension, and then to the west, that's the Hong Shui Kiu project. So for the Northern Metropolis project, so we are proceeding in accordance with the program. And also, in the Northern Metropolis, there will be more land provided for innovation and technological development. And then that will also help us to strengthen our collaboration with Shenzhen. As for the Khao Yai Chau Artificial Islands, as you know, we're doing various studies, technical studies in particular, because we're talking about reclamation, so we need to do studies on the habitat and on water flow and so on. So we have to complete the studies first before we could take the project forward. As for the time frame for the Khao Yai Chau project, well, that will come after the Northern Metropolis. We will proceed with the Khao Yai Chau project, but in terms of sequence, we will first proceed with the Northern Metropolis, and then we will first complete all the studies for the Khao Yai Chau project first. And then at the far end, the second last row, the reporter closest to me. Yes, that's you. I'm from RTHK. Financial Secretary. So you're saying for the Kao Yi Chao Artificial Islands project, that will come a bit later. Now, initially, you're going to start the project in 2025. Are you going to push that back by how long, much longer? And so how will you be able to slow down spending, and to what extent? Another question is about infrastructure. You're going to have issue bonds, some $70 billion for retail bonds, and there will be bonds for infrastructure. So what is the scale of the issuance? Maybe just $10 billion or so. That's not much. So where will you put the money in? It's just a third question. Complete removal of the property cooling measures. Why are you proceeding to such that without doing stress test and so on? Because you're taking these major measures to help to prop up the property market.
方面咧就
On infrastructure projects, the Kao Yi Chao Artificial Island, prior to taking forward the projects, we need to conduct technical feasibility study, and then we will review the findings before deciding on the next step. The Development Bureau said that by 2025, reclamation would commence. Now, judging by the current situation, we may have to adjust the timetable a bit. The KYC Artificial Island is an important ingredient in land supply and creation. We will press ahead with it. On the other hand, in terms of spatial distribution of our land supply, our conventional business districts are in Central, Tsim Sha Tsui, Admiralty, and so on. The second CBD is in East Kowloon. The future KYC Artificial Island will be an important business node in the West in the future. We have to give consideration to our public finance situation. However, as a result, we may have to defer the project a bit further than 2025, but we will definitely go ahead with it. About the size of bond issuance, in the coming years, it will be ranging between $120 billion to $130 billion. Concerning the proceeds from bond issuance, our bonds are of shorter terms, so we will have to make repayments for previous bond issuance. On average, we are spending around $10 or $20 billion on bond repayments. Concerning green bond and silver bond, we don't have a timetable for the issuance yet. Compared with previous tranches, we only issued the bonds per annum. In the future, we may increase the frequency. The exact timetable would depend on market factors. On your last question about the complete removal of demand-side management measures for residential properties, we have given consideration to the market situation and the economic situation. Back then, when we implemented the measures, there was a shortage of housing supply. There was a very tight supply situation, and the property prices were soaring. This is not the situation at present. We have also looked at the next 3 to 4 years residential supply. There will be some 109,000 flats supplied. That is quite a high level. For unsold complete flats, we have some 20,000 of them. In other words, we have a relatively balanced supply and demand situation. As a result, the demand-side control measures are no longer necessary. We can allow unrestricted purchase and sell in the markets. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through the mic. We have considered every factor in deciding whether the demand-side management measures are still needed. As I said, they are no longer required. Now, market's response, on the other hand, is affected by a number of factors. Whether people will buy a flag, when will they buy a flag? They would consider many things besides the measures in the budget. For example, the economic outlook, their own employment situation, their income level. The measures we are implementing now is to give the markets a signal to ensure that the market has a clear expectation. And also, we want to contain the spiraling of pessimistic market sentiments due to high interest rates and so on. Next question, please. I am from Caixin News. I'm Jessica. I have two questions. First, in the budget, the government is implementing fiscal consolidation to save cost so as to achieve a balanced budget in a few years' time. Under this situation, in terms of making expenditure to boost our economy and create new growth engine, how would you accord priority? Which areas would you accord priority to? Second question, the Central People's Government has stated that we have to adhere to reforming to address issues. We have to rely on a critical measure. Do we have our own critical measure in Hong Kong? The global political landscape is changing. For Hong Kong to remain as a superconnector, what do you think we have to change and make breakthroughs? Thank you. Fiscal consolidation has a focus on expenditure cuts. We have the program to enhance our efficiency and make a 1% cut. Now we are extending that program by another year. We want to make sure that our resources are spent to drive the maximum economic growth. In the short term, that means adding to the vibrancy of our tourism industry. We have the three engines for growth: export, private consumption, and investment. There is not much we can do about export. What we can do is to boost consumption and attract visitors to come to Hong Kong. With more visitors, with a sufficient mass, and with enhancements to our tourism products and services, if we can offer a quality experience for visitors, they will be happy to stay and make consumption. As a result, in the short term, we have allocated significant resources to boost our tourism industry. Not just the tourism sector would benefit. When there are high quality visitors coming to Hong Kong, they would also benefit other sectors like the retail and catering segments. In the medium to long run, we will nurture our I&T businesses. We will continue to consolidate our strength in the financial services sector. We will also help nurture emerging industries so that they can become our new growth engine in the future. And I'm talking about the I&T industry. That's why we have allocated more resources to the I&T sector in the budget. We would help conventional industries to digitalize and transform themselves. On the other hand, we would focus on promoting growth in AI, biotechnology, life science, advanced manufacturing, and new industries. We are attaching a lot of focuses on these segments. Through this, we can create synergy by attracting quality enterprises and capital to come. That is critical for our medium to long-term development. Next question. The gentleman in black.
English questions from the South China Morning Post. Firstly, Mr. Chan, you mentioned you've made a big move by scrapping all of the property curbs measures. What is the government's rationale or beliefs behind it? Have you evaluated how it would affect the market and also how this could help revive the economy? Secondly, how will you also respond to comments that a change in salary tax is targeting the super rich and that the general public is only getting a small amount of sweeteners in this budget? Are you worried that this budget could not please everyone on all sides? And lastly, with regards to the government's plan to boost the tourism industry, how effective do you think that these measures will actually be? And how do you reconcile the apparent contradiction between boosting tourism, but at the same time also reviving the hotel tax, as you mentioned earlier in the budget?
Reviving
the hotel tax.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Remove all the property. We are going to remove all the property-related demand-side management measures because we do not think it is necessary anymore. The market conditions have been very different now compared to 2010 and thereafter when these measures were introduced at different stages. Taking into consideration the current market situation, the future supply, the economic situation, we think now it is the appropriate moment to remove all these demand-side measures and let the market adjust itself. The immediate assessment would be in terms of volume. Because of the removal of these measures, the volume would likely be going up. But at the end of the day, I think whether to buy a residential property is a very personal decision, depending on a number of factors specific to the individual buyers, including their own needs, their employment situation, their expectation of the economy, their assessment of the future property market, etc. On salaries tax, we increase slightly the tax on the high-income individuals, those having an accessible income in excess of 5 million. And the additional rate is just 1%, from 15 to 16. So the impact on our competitiveness is minimum. And we believe, and in fact, we have done some research, even with this increase, our sales tax regime remains very competitive compared to other jurisdictions. So in order to get additional income by reference to the ability to pay, we think this is the right move. On the so-called sweeteners, the relief measures to the general public, I hope people would understand we have really tried our very best. We have a few years budget deficit. This year is going to be deficit again. So there is certain limitation as to the room within which we can hand out those sweeteners. But we are also sensitive of the situation of individuals in the community. Although the economy is recovering and the economy is registering positive growth, but the growth is not even. Some people have a better employment income, some people not. So in the circumstances, we think it is appropriate for us to still give some relief support, but we have to scale it back a little bit. That's the consideration. And finally, for the tourism industry, in the budget, and in fact, in the past few months, we have organizing a lot of planning and organizing a lot of mega events. And in the budget, we have allocated over $1 billion for the tourism industry to make more product offerings, to stage more activities in order to attract more high-quality tourists to come to Hong Kong and try to attract these people to spend more time in Hong Kong. So this is what we have been trying. But at the same time, when we look at the hotel accommodation tax we took away a few years ago, when we look around major cities in the region and internationally, I would say all of them have hotel accommodation tax one way or the other, either as hotel accommodation tax or as GST or as VAT. We are the only exception. So by increasing slightly the tax on this, which is 3%, which is less than 1% of average spending by overnight visitors, it is very affordable. And but it will give us, the government, over 1 billion in income. So I think this is the right move, and we give the sector about 10 months' time to work this out.
好，
Next. The last row, the lady in green. I'm from Tsingtao Daily. Good afternoon. Now, for sweeteners, you are giving out far fewer sweeteners. And many said that how come the government's spending on areas not related to them after they heard the budget. So they felt that you are focusing more on the economy rather than people's livelihood. And then there is less land revenue by some $60 billion. And so after removal of the property cooling measures, does it mean the property market will be perform better? And then so you're able to sell land, but if not, then will the economy even doing even worse? Finally, on hotel accommodation tax, many saying that hotel rooms are costing too much. That's why they choose not to stay overnight here instead of go to the mainland. So if you're now levying a hotel accommodation tax, with make things worse. Thank you. Well, yes, we have half the sweeteners this year compared to the last year. I hope the public will be understanding. We've had fiscal deficits for a few years in a row. This year, we also have a fiscal deficit. So that's why we do have certain constraints in giving out sweeteners, given our financial position. Well, the economy is recovering, but not evenly across sectors. But still, on the whole, the economic situation is better than that of last year. Now, we expect the economic growth this year to be 2.5 to 3.5%. And the next few years, we project positive economic growth. So we believe that it's not about government support measures or relief measures to help the public have more income, but rather the economy does better and then everybody could earn a high income. So we therefore would like to focus our resources on promoting economic development. Now, in the near term, because there are still constraints in relation to exports, so to boost the economy, we want to focus on tourism. We want to attract more high-spending overnight visitors to Hong Kong, and then they will that will in turn benefit the retail and catering sectors as well. So that's our thinking. As for the so-called property cooling measures, we're removing them because the market situation is now very different. Now, soon we are approaching the end of March for this financial year. As you know, we didn't do too well in land sales. So that's why for 23-24, we are seeing less land sales revenue. But we believe that's just a short-term phenomenon. It's rather a cyclical issue. As we look ahead, as confidence stabilizes, we will realize that there is still a certain demand for residential units in Hong Kong. Now, there is demand from local residents. And then, as you know, we've been competing for enterprises and talents. The chief executive also reported good progress with competing for talents. We've approved over 100,000 applications. Some tens of thousands of them have already moved to Hong Kong. And then, of course, for those the talents who come to Hong Kong, they will have housing needs. So we shouldn't be too optimistic just because of some short-term issues in relation to the property market. And so that's why we're removing the property cooling measures, because at the time, the measures were introduced when the market was not performing normally. And now we have a relatively stable supply, and all the figures are transparent. We know how many new units will be supplied, or how much land will be supplied, and so therefore people could draw their own conclusion, and that's why on that basis we have removed all the property cooling measures.
Next question, please. Concerning the hotel accommodation tax, we expect a very limited impact on visitors. According to surveys conducted by the Tourism Commission, the Tourism Board, the average consumption made by visitors in Hong Kong is $7,000, with some $2,000 spent on hotel accommodation. So the 3% hotel accommodation tax is equivalent to some 60 to 70 Hong Kong dollars. If they are spending so much and we're just charging them $60 to $70, it is less than 1% of the total consumption. On the other hand, with more mega events and richer experience on the scene, we can enhance our attractiveness towards visitors. If they have a very, very welcoming and good experience in Hong Kong, they will be happy to spend more and come more often. Next question, the lady in blue. Thank you. I'm from Shenzhen Satellite TV. Mr. Paul Chan, you have been saying that INT will become the largest growth engine in Hong Kong. Now you have earmarked some $2 billion to establish the Inno Hong Kong platform and establish the Hong Kong side of the hotel park. So compared with before, how much more will we allocate to building the Hong Kong side of hotel park, and how will you collaborate with the Shenzhen municipal government to take forward the high quality development in the GBA? The Hotel Hong Kong Shenzhen Technology Parks development is a strategic project that is one of the 4 major INT platforms proposed by the country. In Hong Kong, we have 2 flagship projects. One is the Science Park, the other one is the Cyberport. In the future, they will have a big role to play in the hotel park. They will set up the incubators as well as facilities to attract talents and enterprises in the INT business. There are several key growth areas. First, AI, cloud analysis, and big data. Second, medical science and life science. In the hotel park, there will be research platforms for medical researchers. And also when the Oasis reach out to the strategic enterprises, we will attract them to the hotel park where there is spacious room for them to conduct researches and commercialization of their products. That's the Health Bureau's purview. Some new measures will be launched by the Health Bureau, including the 1+ primary evaluation approval system and also clinical trials facilities. The hotel park will be a major cooperation zone between Hong Kong and Shenzhen in terms of medical science, AI, big data, and so on. Next question. The gentleman in black. Good afternoon. I'm from Hong Kong Economic Times. In last year's policy address, the easing of the demand side management measures for residential properties did not see much result. So are you confident about this round of measures? And also the tax concession for salaries tax assessments has been reduced to $3,000. So is there less support for the middle class? We have removed all demand side control measures. By doing so, prospective buyer occupier of flats or investors will have more confidence in waging into the market. So our measures will bolster the confidence of the market. In terms of the market's outlook, we do see a stable and healthy development in the property market. Now, the tax rebate is just $3,000. I ask for your understanding because of the financial position we are in. Our room for maneuvering is limited. We have a considerable fiscal deficit, and we have already implemented drastic cost-saving measures within the government. So, to my regret, we will have to reduce the amount of tax rebate. Next question. The lady in apricot.
HK. So about the scrapping of all the property cooling measures. What if the market remains lukewarm after the scrapping? What could the government further do? And the second question, because the government will extend the tax concessions for electric vehicles, but the amount will be cut by 40%. Will this in turn have a negative effect in encouraging people to go for electric cars? Thank you.
On the removal of the demand side measures for the property market, we believe this is turning the market back to the normal situation. How the market will react, of course, remains to be seen. But I think from the government's standpoint, it is important for us to grasp the right opportunity to remove the frictions in the market. That is the thinking. On the electrical vehicles, although the amount of relief has been reduced by 40%, but we have to look at this in the broader context. That is, the supply of those electric private vehicles are much more than before in terms of the price range, in terms of the different choices of brands. So we believe this is the right move, would be an enough incentive for people in considering to buy a car, to choose electric vehicle.
好，下一條題目。
Next question. The lady over there. Mr. Paul Chan, I'm from Guangzhou Daily. In this morning's budget, there is a chapter dedicated to participation in developing the GBA. So how much more resources have been allocated to this bid and in what areas? And through the budget, how can you drive Hong Kong's participation in GBA development? We are also a member of the GBA. In actively involving in and contributing to the GBA development, policy drivers are required. So I've mentioned quite a number of measures in terms of I&T. Maybe I will defer to Mr. Christopher Hui to talk about how we are collaborating with other mainland cities in the GBA in the financial aspects. Thank you. Concerning our collaboration with other GBA mainland cities in the financial area, This year marks the 5th anniversary of the outline development plan for the GBA. So we are doing many things. In terms of mechanism, we have a task force to develop financial services sector together with the Shenzhen municipal government. We are taking on board views from the sector with a view to speeding up financial collaboration in fintech together with our sister city. There are also other mechanisms. Just now, on the 26th of February, Monday, the Cross-Boundary Wealth Connect scheme was launched. That is the Wealth Connect Scheme 2.0. The market response was great. There were 3 areas. The quota for personal investments has been tripled both ways, from $1 million to $3 million. And also, there are more financial products beyond low-risk products. On the thirdly, personal and retail investors are also given a ticket. In the past, we only accept investments from institutional investors. And also, we will facilitate flow of talents within the Bay Area. We have been liaising closely with the Qianhai regulators in facilitating Hong Kong talents to take part in the financial markets in the Bay Area. We have the 18 measures in Qianhai so that private equity funds registered in Hong Kong can more easily invest in INT stocks in Qianhai. So we have enhanced the depth and breadth of the Connect schemes.
Sorry, the speaker did not come through. For Guangzhou, we actually look at the development of GBA as a whole. In Guangzhou, of course, they're doing well in life technology. There are many excellent enterprises there. And in Hong Kong, we also have a good financing platform for life technology. So we welcome Guangzhou and other places to come and raise financing here. And of course, for the GBA measures I mentioned, they of course cover Guangzhou. At the far end, the last row, in the middle, the gentleman in black, please. Good afternoon, I'm from Cable TV. Now, there's this fiscal consolidation program proposed in the budget. You expect to achieve fiscal balance in 2 years' time. But it seems that there aren't that many cost-cutting measures. It doesn't seem that they could save much money. Does it mean that in 2 years our economy will rebound substantially? So there will be a lot more stock transaction and property transaction revenue for the government? And do you think you're being too optimistic with that projection? Second question. In the fiscal consolidation program, there's mention of reviewing the $2 public transport fare scheme and also the public transport fare subsidy scheme. So what will be the way of review? For example, would it be instead of $2, it will be $3? And would there be more age restrictions and so on? Can you tell us in which direction you're going to review the scheme? Third question. Again, in the fiscal consolidation program, there's mention of zero growth of the civil service. In the past, some have suggested a pay cut for civil servants. Have you looked into that? Is there a need to do so in future? So civil servants may face a pay cut in future. As for principal officials, will you do like what was done in the past, maybe give them less of pay for a month or something? The fiscal consolidation program there's a mention of restoring fiscal balance in 2 years. That includes bond issuance. If we do not include bond issuance, fiscal balance will only be restored in 2028 to 29. That means it will take a few more years. But I think on the whole, it's about our recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure. We are trying to slow the pace of increase gradually year by year. That's the first one. Secondly, you mentioned civil service pay. Well, there is a mechanism for adjusting civil service pay. There are 6 factors in considering whether to adjust civil service pay. Public finances is one of the factors, but then civil service morale is another factor. The impact on the community and so on are also factors we have to consider. So we will review civil service pay within the mechanism. Usually it will be about around April or May when there's a review. As for senior civil servants or officials, now we are facing fiscal challenges. The most effective way is for us to encourage each department to make savings through the productivity enhancement program. As for the civil servants and senior and principal officials, their pay level will have an impact on the level in the market. But we've seen how the economy performed last year. That's economic growth this year. We expect economic growth of 2.5 to 3.5%. In the next few years, we project positive economic growth. So we want the salary class to see an increase in their income. And we do not want government act to negatively impact on the salaried class in the labor market. Oh, my apology. The $2 transport fare concession scheme. I must stress that we have no intention to cancel the schemes. There's 2 schemes will go on, but we believe there is a need to review the details of the scheme. You mentioned some examples. So we'll invite the Labor and Welfare Bureau to review the operation of the scheme in the next few months. So we could then come up with a model that we will keep offering fair concession, but at the same time the scheme is financially sustainable in the long run for the government. So the LMB, the Labor and Welfare Bureau, will be doing that in the next few months. Next, please. Close to me, the second last row, the one in green, please. I'm from Ming Pao. 3 questions. First one about public finances. Now you have targeted sweeteners this time. Well, what about increasing sources of revenue? For example, public fees and so on. There's no major reform. That means there won't be much additional revenue. We can see in the past few budgets, you have substantially underestimated the fiscal deficit. So is your projection too optimistic? Second question is about removing the property cooling measures. Now, just at the beginning of the year, the government was saying that the affordability ratio is some 70% is still higher than the average affordability ratio for the public. So now, if you remove the measures and there will be speculation again, will you then consider introducing cooling measures again? Our last question is legislating for Article 23. Will there be any increase in the expenditure on safeguarding national security? If so, by what extent? On public finances, there is a mechanism for the government to review various fee levels. So we go by that mechanism. And after reviews are done, then announcements will be made. So we'll go by the established mechanism. Second question about creating more revenue sources. We need to be pragmatic. as you can see, as we try to generate more revenue, we don't want to add to the burden of the general public, but rather we go for those who can afford to pay more principal. So that's why for salaries tax, we're only increasing the salary tax rate for those earning $5 million or more. Even for rates, we are just looking at more valuable properties. That means the rateable value is over $550,000. Only then will we increase the rate. So it's the principle of those who can afford pay more. And as for our projection of fiscal deficit for 2023 to 24, the fiscal deficit was a few tens of $billions higher than originally projected. That's because of the poor asset market performance. That's because of geopolitical tensions, and also high interest rates remain high longer than expected. And then we suffered less revenue in terms of land sales and the stock market stamp duty, and that's why the deficit is higher than projected. But these are all cyclical in nature, and so we need to keep tab of the situation, and we cannot substantially increase tax over a short period of time just to restore fiscal balance. We need to move gradually. As for the property market, property prices have remained high for a long time in Hong Kong. If you look at the affordability ratio, yes, it's also at a high level. At the same time, the SA government is providing a large number of public housing units for rent and for sale. This is to help people to buy their homes. So perhaps we will do more in terms of subsidized sales flats and to promote, to help the public become homeowners. As for national security expenditure, it's not covered in the usual estimates. There is a special item for that.
係咧，我哋去到
For the interest of time, we will take the questions from the last two reporters. In the last row, the gentleman in the middle. Good afternoon. I'm from Now TV, Ka Chun. 3 questions. First, concerning pyrotechnics. Now we have a serious fiscal deficit. If we organize a firework every month, would that be counterintuitive? And how much benefits will it bring? About the $2 concession scheme. Why hasn't the government considered canceling this subsidy scheme? Is it because of the insistence of some legislative council members? About tobacco duty. For each state, the tobacco duty is 80 cents more. After last year's hike in tobacco duty, how much fewer smokers do we have? I would invite Ms. Kathy Ju, the Permanent Secretary, to talk about the $2 scheme. Thank you. In the budget, we have set out the expenditures of the 2 transport subsidy schemes. We have seen rapid increase in the expenditure on these 2 schemes. However, like the Financial Secretary said, there is no intention to cancel the 2 transport subsidy schemes. But we will seek to make the 2 transport subsidy schemes financially sustainable. There have been views in society that it is great to have a transport subsidy scheme for the elderly people. This would encourage the old to come out and move about and meet with their friends. This is something very useful for the elderly people, so we don't think we will cancel these schemes. With an aging population, the expenditure on the transport subsidy schemes will snowball. So we will have to find a way to contain the increase in expenditure and ensure that it is affordable. Concerning tobacco duty, according to the Health Bureau, after the hike in tobacco duty, there has been a slight drop in the number of smokers. The WHO has issued a guideline that is the proportion of tobacco duty should be 75% of the retail price of each stick of tobacco, of cigarettes. We have yet to achieve that level. We are currently at 70%. There are international studies showing that increasing the level of tobacco duty would be efficient in lowering the smoking population. Now, pyrotechnics are different from firework display. For firework display, we had one just now in the West Kowloon Cultural District, and in last year's summer, we had firework displays in Causeway Bay. Now, pyrotechnic display, on the other hand, is much lower, and there would be more than pyrotechnic displays. There would be drone performance as well. These are tourism products which will attract visitors. You would want the visitors to stay behind and enjoy the time in Hong Kong for a few more days. So you need activities to attract them to stay. Now we are working with the tourism board to find sponsors for the pyrotechnic shows. Now for a firework display, every show costs some $10 million. $10 to $20 million. For pyrotechnics, each time it costs only $1 million or so. The specifics of the programs would be designed by the tourism board. We won't just have pyrotechnic shows and drone shows. We will link them with other mega events and offer a good time for visitors. So do give us some time. The Hong Kong Tourism Board will tell you the ideas in due course.
近我呢邊最尾
Last question, close to me, the lady in brown.
From CNA. Hong Kong is keen to attract high net worth individuals. Did you anticipate that the higher salary tax will impact the talent drive? And will the impending Article 23 affect Hong Kong's appeal as a financial hub, given that the exodus of expats in the last few years? And following for, like Mr. Chen, you mentioned the Gao Yuzhou reclamation is unlikely to start in the late of 2025. So would it kickstart in 2026, and would it be commenced within the current administration turn time? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, for high net worth individuals, they are highly mobile, and they must realize, even with this slight increase in our standard salaries tax rate, I think we are still the most competitive international city in terms of salaries tax. And when you compare our tax rate to those in other jurisdictions, hand on my heart, I firmly believe we are still the most competitive. On the Gao Yuzhou reclamation, the artificial island, this project will be taken forward. At the moment, they are conducting different feasibility studies and technical studies. Given the time required to do the studies and take stock of the findings of the studies in order to roll out mitigating measures, if there is any, we do think we could allow ourselves a little more time. So for the two mega projects, the Northern Metropolis and the Gao Yuzhou Artificial Islands, we do think in terms of implementation, they do not need to be implemented at the same time. We can have one follow another. So at the moment, the Northern Metropolis mega project is proceeding very well. And we are proceeding in full speed with regard to the feasibility and technical studies relating to the reclamation. With those findings, we'll also look into the different financing options. Then we would be in a better position to roll it out. So we probably would not be do it towards the end of 2025. We need to defer it a little bit, but we are determined to do it. Article, I missed that question, sorry. Well, on Article 23, as far as we know, in all the consultations that we have conducted with the different sectors, there are consensus in supporting this Article 23 legislation, because people do think that we don't want to see those social unrest occurred in 2019 to recur again. And stability and security is the premise upon which the economy can really grow. Thank you.
好，多謝各位，我哋。
Thank you. That's the end of the press conference. Thank you.